Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Welcome, everybody, to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. My guest today is Todd
Hoppenstedt.
Hoppenstedt. I'm terrible with last names. It's like the thing I do now, Todd, is I just mess up last names and then I try and learn from that. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, Todd, I'd known you. I guess we met years ago in here in Illinois in Carroll Stream, and then you were in Montgomery. Give me a little history of Todd and where you started and how you got into public works.
Listeners, and if you've got regular listeners, I apologize because my story might be very similar to some of the stories I've heard recently on your show. Some of the other folks you've interviewed had similar kind of backgrounds. So okay. I started as a seasonal worker, in high school. That seemed like the thing I wanted to do. And so it was the summer after my junior year that I started just cutting grass, and then I got kind of pushed around, not in a bad way, but working for the city of Wheaton, and moved from one department, helping in the parks department and right-of-ways, and then I'd help out in concrete here and streets over there and forestry over here. And so just kind of got pushed around and shared wherever needed. And part of that kind of evolved because my first 2 years of college, I stayed locally at a community college. So I was living at home, and I wanted that summer job to continue on, even throughout the school year when I could do it. So they were very flexible with me, and they'd let me work, 2 or 3 days a week part-time. And I'd come in and plow snow in the wintertime. And they just loved, I think they loved anyway, having a part-timer around that they could kind of lean on for help and in that. So really exposed me to several different areas. But I studied law enforcement in college, and that was really where my interest was. When I got out of college, I was kind of working in a similar security type role, and one day just ran into a guy that I used to work with at the city of Wheaton, and we were talking, and he said, well, we have some positions open that, maybe you'd be interested in. So I applied for one of those in the water department and went to work there and enjoyed it. It was much like the work I had enjoyed as a seasonal summer help kind of staffer. Yeah. But after a couple of years, I'd been testing at police departments and got on their eligibility lists and things. And it was probably 2 years in, and I realized, what, I'm making as much money as I'd make as a police officer. Maybe my calling, if you will, was just public service. And I didn't know what that looked like at a younger age when I decided to, pick a major in college. Uh-huh. So that's kind of my story. I've worked I'm not necessarily proud to brag about this because I've moved around a bit, but it's all been for good upward growth in my career, and I'm happy with where I've landed. So I worked for the city of Wheaton. I've also worked in the private sector. I worked for National Waterworks, which became HD Supply, selling water pipe and hydrants and sewer pipe and that kind of thing. And then I worked for the village around Lake Beach, the village of Carroll Stream, and the village of Montgomery, all in the Chicago market. And then 5 years ago, I decided I was looking for a change. My family and I decided we were ready to go a little further south. And so we're just south of Nashville now and loving every minute of it, working for the city of Brentwood, Tennessee.
You have a broad experience level of all aspects of like infrastructure, the selling side, the public works side, running the public works departments. That's a really amazing background you have there. Obviously, to get away from the winter is why you went to Tennessee, I would imagine, right?
One of several.
One of several. I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, I'm getting too old for this. I've got to go. Like it's too cold.
I don't want to get off track, but there's so many. It's climate, it's quality of life. It's taxes.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody living in Northern Illinois or in Illinois is proud of what they pay in tax. So,
Right.
if you are, give me a call and we can debate it offline. But it's just been a great decision for my family and I.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the tax one, but yes, that's a major issue with taxes, but almost did. So,
my experience, like you said, is kind of broad. I've had some exposure in pretty much every area of public works, utilities included. In my most recent position before Brentwood, I kind of oversaw it all, including facilities and fleet. Here in Brentwood, we're a larger size community, larger footprint, maybe not as large in population. It's only about 45,000 people, but we cover about 42 square miles. And so my position here in Brentwood is strictly public works, meaning roads infrastructure, stormwater, a lot of the things you can see, traffic signals, that kind of thing. We have a separate water services department that handles our potable water and our sanitary sewer. I can speak to that a little bit, but I'm not really over that here in Brentwood. And so what's been nice for me is it kind of allows me the opportunity to focus on one area. Whereas in some previous positions, when you're spread a little more thin, it's hard to really master the game in any one particular area. You'll go from fighting a snowstorm to fixing a water main break, and there's really no rest in between. And then, 3 days later, when you wake up, you're like, wow, there's a few loose ends on both of those jobs that I just kind of forgot about because it's too much on my plate. So it's really been nice to focus. I can understand from a salesperson's perspective that dropping in is probably the most efficient for them, because if you make a call in the neighboring community, you don't necessarily know how long that conversation might take. And so once you're freed up, you bounce on to the next guy and you just kind of drop in. And that's fine and welcomed, although we're rarely going to connect because I don't have you on my calendar, and believe it or not, my calendar's pretty full. So it can be challenging to really connect and get the value out of that conversation. And while you leave me a line card or a business card, chances of me, giving you a call just to see what's going on are probably slim. I might look at the website. I might take a quick look at the marketing materials and say, oh, interesting. But it's not getting the value that you're probably hoping for. So my preference would be if somebody would just reach out via phone or email, and set up an appointment to meet with me. Now, I welcome those appointments.
There.
That work?
I think so. Now it's recording again.
Okay.
So we can keep going.
We left off. So my preference with regards to, trying to get my attention for a few minutes is one, be respectful of my time. And I think most salespeople are. That just try and schedule something ahead of time, and also understand that depending on what we're dealing with at any given time, if I'm doing a concrete job and that's the kind of work you're coming in to sell, then I'm going to have a lot more time and interest because I want to learn more about it. There's so many different facets of what we do. If it's something that's kind of on my back burner, my attention level might be hard to grasp. And
right.
A lot of times I'll get cold calls or emails from software companies. Hey, I've got the latest and greatest asset management. Well, that's great. But once a municipality has kind of signed up with whatever platform they've chosen, it's generally a continual thing. We continue to dump our information into that platform, and it becomes a more and more cumbersome task to make a switch. Not saying people don't switch. If the cost gets out of control or the service just isn't there, then there's likely a change warranted. But So to that point, don't nag me about how great your software system is, because I'm probably not going to be making a switch anytime soon.
Right. I mean, if you're invested,
I don't want to waste your time either.
Yep. 100%. If you're invested in some kind of technology, it's going to be hard for you. Like you said, just your team's using it, you're using it. It's like, now we got to bring in this new thing that's going to disrupt everything that we're doing. And, I think from your side of things, my team's going to throw a fit potentially, and then I'm going to have to deal with that. And it just causes a lot of turmoil potentially for me.
Training those end users. I mean, I'm not trying to sound condescending, but some of my field staff aren't as technically savvy as you or I. Well, you probably, because I'm not much better than they are. To retrain those people on how to enter a work order or document something in our software system, that alone could be a cumbersome task.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think I was talking to another wastewater treatment plant operator a couple months ago, and he was telling me that he's kind of overburdened with technology. And I thought that was interesting. He's like, yeah, I just, I have these sensors that tell me I got to go clean them off. We don't have the crews to go clean them off, things like that, that it's giving him a lot of information, but he just doesn't have the time to go there and do the maintenance on it because now they have technology. Now they're inundated with more maintenance work that needs to get done too. So, and then he's also said that, they got to sign on different platforms and different places. And, that seems to be a different struggle for them is, trying to manage it all and keep track of it. So,
yeah, it's got its advantages and disadvantages. And what if he's getting those to kind of jump on that? He's getting those alerts when maintenance is needed. But if one of them starts acting up, then he loses the confidence, say, in those alerts. And you kind of could easily see how somebody could just kind of turn a blind eye to these alerts because that thing's never right. Yeah. So it can be a challenge sometimes to stay on top of it. A lot of municipalities run so lean that we just don't have the staff. And even if we've got the positions budgeted, filling them is a whole nother, task. So it can be difficult to kind of stay comfortably aware of everything.
Yeah. What type of technologies do you look for? There's got to be some other, like you have streetlights. We're heading into the smart city initiative. It's, it was talked about decades ago, or maybe not decades, but a decade ago at least. And now I see it coming back up on like LinkedIn and people are talking about smart city. What do you think about smart city?
I think, again, it's got its advantages and its disadvantages. Whenever we can kind of reduce the manpower through some of those electronic alerts or AI, I think that's helpful. If it's consistent and it's trustworthy information, then it can be a real advantage. In my current role, some of the technology I look for is related to traffic signals, and making sure that those are functioning properly and are we getting the proper alerts when a detection camera is maybe a little bit off, or does it have to wait until we get 10 complaints that the light just never seems to change, and then we kind of figure out that there's an issue, that kind of thing. Other forms of technology, I'm doing a lot less with water and sewer in this role, but with regards to pavement evaluation, we do the laser survey every couple of years so you have some good data to make decisions off of. That's not the only thing we use to make our decisions. We look at maintenance work on segments of road and traffic volumes and stormwater and different things as well. But it really does provide you the data necessary to defend some of your decisions and to help plan budgets in years to come. So those are some of the more advantageous technology areas that I see.
That's good. Do you think that people should, should say, is government should be a little bit more transparent with maybe what they're doing as far as that data, that information, and sharing it with their residents, that are in their communities, so that they understand where their taxpayer dollars are going?
That's kind of a answer that may sound a little bit like I'm flip-flopping. I completely agree that transparency in government is a great thing to have, and I would love to be as transparent as possible. It's how that information can be perceived and then manipulated on the other side which can be a challenge. So case in point, if we put out a social media alert saying that we're going to be repaving X road, we're intending to provide you that information. Maybe you seek a different route of travel, maybe you plan accordingly, or maybe you're just aware of what's going on and how your money is being spent in government. But a lot of times that will just foster a online debate of misinformation. Oh, well, it's about time they did that street. Why aren't they doing my street? And I hate to make that sound so negative, but it can be very exhausting.
I bet.
And for somebody like myself, oftentimes it feels like we're just chasing our tail. I'm never going to get my priorities accomplished in the office if I'm just out chasing complaints all the time. And that's part of what I do. But, you don't want to seed those complaints either. So if that kind of makes sense, all for transparency, but how's that information being used on the other side can be
interesting.
Can be the challenge.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Just all the, being transparent, but having to deal with the fires that you're going to end up having to put out because of being too transparent. That's an interesting way of looking at it. How do you, sticking to roads, because we were talking about roads, is, asphalt and just looking at road conditions, like you kind of mentioned. I just posted a thing today about potholes. Potholes are always a big problem in the wintertime, especially. Yeah. Okay. So, and cities are paying for the damages. I was just curious about that. Is that something that you do in Brentwood? Not to, bring it, put it out there, but I was just curious.
So, I wouldn't be surprised at all if somebody tells me I'm completely wrong. And, but the way we handle it is if it's something that we're aware of and it damages your car and you file a complaint, then oftentimes we will file a claim. And if the city isn't paying for it directly, our insurance would pay for it. But a lot of times, like with the video you posted this morning, many of those potholes kind of just popped up or grew in size to a size that would cause damage to your vehicle with the recent rains in California, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yep, it was.
And so, you don't necessarily have fair warning of those types of things. If we have a freeze-thaw event and we develop, say, 100 new potholes overnight, those aren't things that I was aware of yesterday or could have directed any sort of improvement towards. So we kind of use the tort immunity clause. If it's something that we knew or should have known, then we have more responsibility to address it. If it kind of surprises us all, then, it is what it is. Doesn't mean that they can't make a claim, but sometimes that's the risk we take as the motoring public too,
Right. I mean, you look at they were reporting 100 a day as I was listening to the article and reading and stuff. 100 a day, they're already behind. I think they had 1,400 or something like that, a list of 1,400, and they were getting 100 a day, and they only have 6 crews. And I'm thinking to myself, they're never going to catch up. I don't know how fast you can pick the pothole. Probably should look that up, but I was just curious on what that cost would look like to the city.
Well, and a lot of times you're not going to get that pothole just perfectly flush with the existing roadway. And so what we find is that when your car tire rides over that patch, that I'll call it cold patch for lack of a better term, that cold patch material that we packed into the hole may be a quarter or a half inch higher than the road because we're anticipating that as traffic hits it, it's going to kind of beat it down and compact it. So we might leave it a little high intentionally. Well, when your tire rolls over it, you might feel a little bit of a bump, but the effect that a lot of people don't realize is your tire's now kind of gone up. And as it comes off that patch, the shock absorber or the strut in your vehicle, the spring, whatever it is, I'm not a mechanic, kind of forces your tire back down to the ground. And so it creates a hammering effect on the backside of that pothole. And that's not the initial issue. We kind of fix the initial issue with the cold patch, but it will spread then in length. And so sometimes we'll get that call, that pothole's been there forever. Well, if you look, our patch from the first time and the second repair and the third repair are all still intact. It's a a extended issue that kind of just continues to grow. And the rain doesn't help. The freeze thaw doesn't help. The snow plowing activity doesn't help. Once that surface layer of asphalt's been compromised with a crack or a spider, alligator crack, for a better term, then it's really going to start to unravel, no pun intended, quickly. And those rain events won't help it any.
The way you just described it versus what that news article just described, completely opposite. You're describing it as a way of like, look, we're doing our job, but it could extend out, it could become worse. The way they were talking about it is like, just potholes, get it fixed and the city will pay for everything. And I'm just like, wow, that's a huge cost. And it's not that you guys, when I say you guys, like, it's not that the public works department isn't doing their job. They're just dealing with keeping that one pothole might still grow into a bigger problem down the road, right? It's just like water mains too. Same thing. You patch a line, you fix it, and then a week later, the next thing pops, and you just keep chasing the problem, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And that becomes a huge issue.
There's a new weakest point.
There you go. Yeah, that's it. So what are your biggest challenges right now in 2023 going into this year that you're focused on or that you're dealing with?
Well, I'll answer that hoping that I have a good idea of what the year's going to bring. But if you'd asked me that 3 years ago, I don't think any of us knew where we were headed. So feel free to call me back in 6 months and say, man, our biggest challenge, I think, is human infrastructure. Then nobody, and when I say nobody, there are still many committed folks that want to work in labor positions, but it seems like that number has dropped significantly. I saw a recent video with Mike Rowe, who, if you're in my industry, you're probably a fan of, because he did that dirty jobs segment, which is a lot of what public works departments do, the stuff that other people might not want to do. Right. And his statistic, assuming he's got his information correct, I'm just going off what he said. I think it was something like 7 million able-bodied prime working age folks from the age of 26 to 52 or thereabouts. If I'm off by a couple of years on one end or the other, forgive me. But 7 million folks that kind of fall into that age range that are able-bodied working folks who not only are not working, they're not looking to work. And I don't know how we got there. I mean, is everybody just TikToking and making a living by making videos of how to prepare their dinner meal? I don't know. I don't have the time to. Hey, amen. God bless you if you can do it. But right, that's not how I make my living. And I need your help, Chad, and I need Colin's help, and I need a million other folks' help on my team to get my job done. And so if we're 20% short, 25% short in staffing, which we have been probably the better part of the last 2 years, wow, that's 20% less that you can really expect out of us. Now, I have to applaud my people that are committed and come in every day, and we really do much of the same level of service and haven't shown, those challenges that we deal with. It requires those folks stepping up, but it becomes exhausting. And you wonder when does that straw break the camel's back? When do these people give so much that they can't give anymore? And then they find somewhere else to go. So that's a concern. And I think probably one of our bigger challenges in the upcoming year is just keeping up with the human infrastructure. Yeah.
I think, just my personal opinion, COVID changed so much for us in public works. Everything, obviously, not just public works, but the whole world, really. But you look at the way we transformed, COVID hit, we in public works had a ton of people retiring at the same time, and then you have these 7 million we're talking about workers that were staying at home for 12 months, maybe. Now you established a habit that they're staying home. They're not going out. They certainly don't want to go out, pop manholes and climb down in the sewer systems like we're talking about. but things have changed so fast for us. Now we have an issue, and I talked about this pay issue too. It's like now we have inflation just drove all the cost up, right? Now hourly wages are going up. I don't think that the public works departments have caught up to that hourly rate yet, especially for all the responsibilities that we're asking of these operators to go out and plow snow, get CDLs and licenses to operate water systems, sewer systems, whatever. What do you think of, besides the TikToks? What are some of the other insights you might have onto that?
I think you're 100% on it, Chad. And not to make it sound like it's all been negative. In some respects, the shutdown, if you will, of people staying home allowed some of us who continued to work throughout that period of time to get projects accomplished without some of the other challenges of traffic.
Yeah.
With regards to traffic, I think our infrastructure actually is in a better spot than it would have been because of the hybrid work plans that many companies have adopted or workers have adopted. And so if you've got, let's just use a whole number, you got 50,000 people commuting every day out of your community. Mm-hmm. If that's now hybrid and those same 50,000 people are commuting, but some of them are going in 3 days a week, some of them only 1 day a week, whatever, you've saved yourself a number of car trips on the roads. And so it's less wear and tear, it's less emissions, it's less a lot of things. So I think there's plenty of advantages to it as well. Right. But you're absolutely right that we struggle to find people who want to do this work. A lot of times with the added responsibility of working for a government that you might not have somewhere else. Let's just pick some big box retailer, and I won't even mention a name, but you can envision one for yourself. Mm-hmm. If they can pay you $25 an hour to work there, why would you want to come work for me at $19 or $20 an hour? Right. You have to have a CDL. You'll be drug tested here. You may not require those things at the other place, and you're inside in a big box store. Presumably, you're out of the elements. I'm going to put you out there in the rain, the snow. I'm going to call you in the middle of the night and tell you got to come to work earlier than you anticipated. Yeah. And that's going to present a challenge for you and your family because you're supposed to get the kids on the school bus before you leave for work or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So it's just there's a lot more responsibility, I'd say, in what we do as public servants than in some of the other similar positions. And I don't know that you commented that we haven't caught up. The government agencies, you're right, they haven't caught up and likely never will because we have that added fiscal responsibility. This money's not, I say being printed. In some cases, some government agencies, it might be being printed. But here in Brentwood, we have a responsibility to our taxpayers and to the people that spend their money in our community. Those are our resources. So I can't just necessarily continue to ratchet up your pay to compete with the big box store right next door. If you want to go work there, unfortunately, you may just go work there, and there's not a lot I can do about it.
Right. Is there any, just in your position, is there any leverage you have as far as going to your councils and your managers and being able to get them to maybe raise that hourly rate? Is that possible? Like what struggles do you have to do to get that to happen?
It is. I mean, years ago they referred to it as a cost of living adjustment or whatever. Right. And those kinds of things may still exist in some form or fashion. I think government provides security that some of those other workplaces may not, especially if we go into a downturn or something like that. It also typically provides much stronger and robust benefits than you would get, say, at a similar big box store. You may not get paid vacation or paid holidays working there. You get that here. The younger generation a lot of times is most concerned about what's my paycheck read at the end of the pay period rather than those lesser seen benefits. What's the value of paid vacation and what's the paid holiday value? Right. A lot of times I don't think the younger generation is looking at that. So we may not be attracting as many people right out of college or high school that we used to. We might be finding people later in life once they've kind of become wise to, all right, this is what it takes to raise a family. I can't afford to be shut down for 6 weeks. Yeah. I could go make tremendous money driving a concrete mixer. And that might be a great job. But if we get a hellacious rainstorm, I'm out of work probably for a couple of days, if not more. If we get a snowstorm or a cold spell, again, you're out of work for a period of time, and calculating what that costs you and your family, relative to a public position where we're probably going to work you more during those times, maybe not something you necessarily want, but you're going to get overtime in addition to your pay, because we need you during those times. We need you even more than we need you on a sunny day in some cases. So,
I think we need to treat public works as what I saw opposed, obviously, first responders. We are not me anymore. Like they're first responders. Like they got to be treated as a fire. And this might be a little too much, but a fireman. Look, we're reinstating water to people, right? That's a huge. We're actually making sure they can put out fires, right? We're making sure that police have barricades and things shut down so that, we're protecting people through public works by doing the things we do every day. So maybe the narrative here is we need to start talking about it in a different way than just, CDLs and things like that. You're becoming a public works first responder. I think that's a great way for us to start marketing it differently and advertising it, to join something that's beneficial to people, right? Helping.
You're absolutely right. The American Public Works Association was, recognized as first responders by the federal government several years ago. I think it might have been under President Obama. I might be mistaken, but it's only been, 12 or 15 years since that kind of first came to be or came to light. Doesn't mean that our grandfathers weren't doing the same work and probably should have been recognized in the same way. But regardless of that, let's say tag that's put on our industry, that tag is there, but we are not in any way recognized that way. No. I had employees, say to me during the pandemic that I'm an essential employee. You require that I come to work while my kids are being forced to stay home. And that creates an additional demand. Believe it or not, people rely on the school system as a form of childcare. That creates an additional demand on people. And so you all classify me as an essential employee and I have to come to work. But where they get a little snarky, and I understand, is my paycheck doesn't necessarily say I'm essential. Yeah. And that's a hard position as a manager to kind of defend. Yeah. We do need to do better. I'm not saying we aren't. Right here in Brentwood, we've done things differently in the past year or two than we ever did before, and I'm sure communities all across the country are brainstorming on how. But back to my earlier comment, I'm not sure that government will ever catch up. That moving bar will always be a click or two behind.
I think you're right. I honestly do. Even with the firefighters and the police pay, initially when you start, it's low, and then eventually it grows into it, and you get pensions and all those other benefits that come with it. But we don't really talk about that anymore. We don't. I don't think so.
We recognize the blue and the red a lot of times, but we forget about the orange, the public works orange, or the utility colors, or even the teachers. I mean,
until the water's shut off.
Yeah. I'd be remiss to say the teachers too, because they're oftentimes even struggling more than we are financially.
Yeah, that's another great point. Well, I'm sure we could keep talking a long time, Todd. This has been awesome. I appreciate your time commitment to sit with me on the hot seat. And if people wanted to learn more about public works and wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
You can find my information on the City of Brentwood's website at brentwoodtn.gov. If you want to reach out to me specifically. Otherwise, familiarize yourself with the American Public Works Agency, APWA, or AWWA for water. And there's probably another 24 that I'm failing to mention, but there's several different areas where you can reach out. call your own local municipality and talk to them. How can I help? A lot of times, you might be able to do something just to help recognize those folks that wasn't a heavy lift on your end, Chad. For instance, wherever you're sitting today, in your home, if you picked up a box of donuts and dropped it off at the local public works shop, you'd probably be a newfound hero in that community, at least for a day or two. Not saying any of us need donuts, but it's the little things. If you've got a crew working out in front of your house, say thank you. Yeah. Don't just drive off. Wave with all 5 fingers, and maybe offer them a bottle of water or a Gatorade. Yeah, it may not be the case everywhere, but those little things, just a thank you, doesn't cost anybody anything, would be greatly appreciated by the men and women that are out there doing that hard work. You see them a lot of times during the day. You might not see those same people that are jumping in a plow truck and running all night long while you sleep, or climbing down in the hole to fix the water main break, but they're doing a lot for you. So years ago, and I don't mean to drag this on, years ago, there was a video, I think, that was put out by APWA, A Day in the Life Without Public Works. And I don't know that they've updated that recently, but that can be a real eye-opening education tool for the public and for younger folks. Yeah. When you look at what happens when the water facility goes down, when the sanitary sewer starts to back up, when the refuse doesn't get picked up off the street, when the traffic signals are flashing and nobody's repaired them and traffic snarls, those are all the things that we do. So a day without public works, that's why we're essential employees. That's why we had to keep coming to work, and we'll continue to do it with a smile on our face. But we're pleased to serve, and if you're not a public servant, you don't probably belong in this business, or you won't last in this business.
Right. I mean, that's it. Helping others. That's what we're here for. So thank you so much, Todd. Great description of everything. And we need to get the word out. And I think this podcast is going to help us do that for sure. So thank you so much for being here.
We appreciate you doing that. Thanks.
Have a great one, Todd. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.